Well, Razorback fans, once again, there's been a report that Muss is connected to a job, and it's not exactly the one you'll be thinking of. But let's talk about in today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of the John Nabors Show, which you can catch every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 on Natty State Sports and nattystatesports.com. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure and check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday as we're getting ready for the weekend. You know, March Madness is here, so that's exciting. Hopefully y'all's bracket looks a lot better than mine because mine is garbage, and I've already given up on it. So it's the way it goes sometimes. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. It's kind of crazy to think about this podcast and recording it because so many things can change. And it's crazy to think that there are people that may be listening to this podcast on Friday, and it's at various points on Friday, and everything could be different. Everything could change. So just keep that in mind because things are ever changing. But the latest thing actually has to do with Razorback Basketball, which we'll talk about another player hitting in the transfer portal in just a second. But specifically, this has to do with Eric Musselman. And for those of you who have been following along and kind of seeing all the Razorback stuff that's been happening in basketball, there's a lot of people that's been leaving. Like Devo Davis left. I had a podcast done yesterday on that, but it, for some reason, didn't record any audio, so it's kind of hard to do. So apologize about that. But Devo has officially entered into the portal, and, you know, it's not surprising. Wish him nothing but the best, but it seems to be par for the course. And we'll talk about another player, but this is dealing with Muss. This comes from Jeff Borzello, who covers all things college basketball for ESPN.com and has always done a great job of it. He puts out that SMU Basketball, Southern Methodist University, they informed Rob Lanier that he's fired after just 2 seasons, which is kind of crazy because in his first season, they only won 10 games, but in the second season, they won 20 games, doubled the wins. They lost in the NIT on Wednesday, but still, you wouldn't think that a coach at a place like SMU in his second season, when he doubles up on the wins, would get fired. But that's what he was hit with. A lot of people were shocked by it, and it looks like Coach Lanier was shocked by it too. Now, what the athletic director, Rick Hart, cites for the reasons behind firing SMU's coach is the investment in basketball, its NIL opportunities, and its move to the ACC as to reasons why they would be competing with some of the best teams. Looks like SMU is going to pursue some big names and attempt to immediately win in the ACC. They're wanting to make a change, making a splash once they join the ACC, which is still stupid to me that they're in the ACC, but nevertheless, they're trying to do something. They're trying to make something happen there. But as Jeff Borzello continues on, he says 3 names have been buzzing for the job in the short time since it opened. McNeese State's Will Wade, former LSU coach, we remember him. Western Kentucky's Steve Lutz. And Arkansas coach Eric Musselman. When you see that, you're like, wait. SMU, Eric Musselman. Nah, no way. No way. Well, here's how I look at it. It can mean a few things. For instance, this could be just SMU leaking out of who their targets are. Nothing to say from Will Wade or Steve Lutz or even Muss, but it could have just been, hey, these are the guys we're targeting. They may have zero interest in the job. They may not even take the phone call. But this could be just SMU leaking out of who they're interested in. Or it could also be that SMU's totally and completely incompetent, and they fired a coach that they shouldn't have, and they think that they can get one of these coaches easily And so they're just like, yeah, these are the guys. These are who we're going after, and no buts about it. We got it. Or there could actually be some interest, some reality for SMU and Muss being mutually interested. Now, as of right now, at the recording of this podcast, there's no reason to believe that Muss is interested in SMU, is actually going to SMU. But this is the first time, from at least the standpoint of legitimate connections and legitimate uh, college basketball experts and analysts and people who cover the sport. I know that there's been some other times, but this is the first one that, at least in my knowledge, that seems like there's enough to at least report on it. Again, Jeff Borzel is just reporting that that's who SMU's targeting. It's who they're going after, but it's the names that have been buzzing there in SMU. So, for all we know, there's no interest, but here's the deal. It makes it so much worse with everything that's been going on with his basketball program, on top of losing, is just a lack of understanding, communication, transparency. Every single thing that's popped up with this basketball team this past year, people may have assumptions, they may make up rumors, they may speculate, they may do all these different things. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of, okay, well, how many of them are true? How many of them aren't true? What can we say? What can we not say? What can we believe? What can we not believe? People are just going to run rampant with their own beliefs on things. It happens. It's their fans. And I'm not saying that every single coach and every single time that something like this pops up for Muss's job or whatever, that it needs to be addressed publicly. I'm not saying that. But just knowing that there's so much smoke around everything that's been going on and no one has a clue is what really drives people to insanity. It drives people to madness. Fans, that is, to madness. They don't know exactly what's going on inside of Muss's head. And honestly, I don't think anybody does. Maybe Muss doesn't even know sometimes. Dude's wild, but I love him. But it's kind of scary to think that these things keep happening. His name keeps getting connected with some jobs. And this is really the first one, too, that you can't even make sense out of. Even no evidence, no setup of, oh, for sure, Muss is interested in this job. But this is the one where you're like, dude, okay. If Muss is interested in this job, then we have really lost our marbles. We have really messed up somewhere. Somebody's messed up. And the fact that this has been kind of ongoing for a while now is just a frustrating deal. I think I'm kind of like you, or we're all at the point where it's just like, hey, listen, we just want this resolved and we want it done. Okay? If Eric Musselman is going to be the head coach next year moving forward, let's have a contract extension. Let's have a public statement. Let's have something that just puts it all to rest. But if he's looking to leave, if he's looking to go, if he doesn't want to be here, then move on. But we need some sort of finality to this. We need some sort of cut and dry, here it is, moving on, done with it. And when we're not getting it, and none of us are getting it, it just continues to boil over. It's unfortunate because, again, I never feel like coaches should address every single time that their name gets brought up. But at the same time, I believe that because of the amount of things that's been going on, that Muss can at least, or Juracek or whoever, can put a lot of this to rest. I look back at Porter Moser when he was connected with the DePaul job. And I even think that there was maybe a local person there in Oklahoma, but somebody reported that he was connected and that he was interviewing for the job. Well, Porter Moser came out on social media almost immediately and was like, zero interest in the job, zero. I'm here. This is where I want to be. And there it was. And for Muss to be someone who is as active on social media, it's almost like I wish he would do that. He doesn't owe it to me. He doesn't owe it to any of us. But, man, it would certainly go a long way. It would just come out like if he could just come out and say, hey, all these rumors about me and other jobs, being connected with other jobs, no, I'm here at Arkansas. I'm committed to Arkansas. This is where I want to be. Into discussion. I just feel like that would go such a long way in the fans' minds, in college basketball minds, and in Hunter Yurachek's mind. Like, everybody would just be like, okay, well, good to know. Yeah, I'm tired of these rumors. He's staying. I think that would just do so much for that. But unfortunately, we haven't had that. So therefore, anything that pops up like this, it just continues to add fuel to the fire of the discussion of, is Muss coming? Or if he's staying or if he's going, like, what is he going to do? I don't know. But again, I just hope it's speculation. I hope it's just, I want Muss to stay here. I want Muss to be here. But at the same time, if he does not want to be here, then move on. But let's just get an answer instead of this speculation nonsense. Let's find out. Let's get something instead of all this nonsense. We'll talk about the latest subtraction to the Razorback basketball team here in just a second. But, folks, this week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Yukon Huskies can only be described as the Armada, my pick to win it all. This top-seeded team is as hardcore as it gets out there, and so it's no wonder they've landed the top overall seed in the NCAA tournament. They're one of the favorites to win it all, despite 4 of the 6 Power 6 conference champions standing in their way over there in the East region. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. We're also here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets, which is one of mine, because FanDuel lets you to bet on every game in the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they are all cutting down the nets.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, as we talked about Musselman being connected with jobs, but the next thing, then, unfortunately, it is a deal with Leen Blockinger. That's right, Leen Blockinger. I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but he officially announced that he is entering into the transfer portal. He announced this on Thursday. I'm not surprised by it, and it's kind of crazy to think about the reaction because I think people were more reactionary of Leen Blockinger entering into the transfer portal than actually having Devo Davis enter into the transfer portal. But either way, he put out on social media a statement and a graphic. It says, prayer, hard work, and sacrifice opened up the doors for me to have an opportunity to play college basketball. First and foremost, I want to thank God for blessing me with the talent to play this game. I want to thank the University of Arkansas basketball coaching staff for recruiting me. It was an honor to come home, represent the state of Arkansas in the Razorback program. I'm grateful for my teammates that have become my brothers who have supported me all on this journey. Thank you to all the fans and the community of your love and support throughout the season. I also want to give a special thanks to the local businesses for your support. After much discussion and consideration, I've decided to enter into the transfer portal. Sincerely, Leen Blockinger. So, there you go. Leen Blockinger. Can you believe that? Entering his transfer portal. Can you believe that? Yeah, I can. So, it is unfortunate that Leen Blockier's jumping in. I'm not saying that it should be, anything other than just it shouldn't be anything other than just a thing of wishing him nothing but the best of luck. That's what it should be. But some people are not going to. They're just not going to deal with it. They're not going to have it. They're not going to do it. Like, it's just people are going to feel the way that they want to feel. But here's my thing about Leen Blockinger is, like, I'm not just upset beyond belief that he's leaving, but I'm not happy he's leaving either. I think Leen Blockinger should have played more especially once the season was pretty much over. When you weren't going to make the NCAA tournament, I would have liked to have seen Leen Blockinger get more minutes, especially in place of some of the other players, which is not anything against anybody necessarily. It's just if you're trying to build towards the future, if you're trying to build your team to the next year, you got to find a way to make that work. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. It didn't happen, and so he's moving on. And you have to wish him, again, nothing but the best of luck. But it is alarming that right now, again, at the recording of this podcast, that you have only 4 players from last year's scholarship roster still on the team, and that's Trevin Brazil, Tremont Mark, Caleb Battle, and Bay Fall. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Bay Fall stays. I think he ends up into the portal. I'm not saying that because I know anything. I'm just saying it because it's just my gut feeling of knowing how things go. But I will say that Muss and the coaching staff have really only, like, as far as the players that they really, really, really wanted to return, Caleb Battle, Tremont Mark, and Trevin Brazil were the 3 that they want the most. And so I think that's the right move for one. But I also think that since those guys are still available, those guys are still technically on the roster, there is still hope and still a chance that you can get all 3. I don't believe all 3 are coming back. In fact, I would be shocked if they all came back. I'm saying it can happen, doesn't mean it will happen. I would be pretty shook up if they had them all coming back. Even getting 2 back, I think, would be a big deal. 2 of those 3. One of them's more likely, though. I think you can get one of them. I'm not sure who, and I'm not saying that there'd be one more so over the other. But I would feel really good about the possibilities if you got all 3 of those guys back and you got some really good pieces out of the portal. Because you still have those 2 freshmen coming in, which if you've been following Curtis Wilkerson, Scotty Bordelon, with Natty State Sports, they're not guys that they're going to count on immediately to make impacts. Like, they're not that type of player. But they could be guys that maybe get some run and get some play here and there. So you need portal guys. But I believe that considering all things that Arkansas has right now that a lot of people are negatively recruiting against them for, I think that you would be able to do a lot of good things with having that core group of 3 dudes, and then people would want to play with those guys because they're really good players. Say what you want about them, but they're good players. If they entered into the portal, they'd get phone calls out the wazoo. But I truly think that that's going to happen. Truly think so. Just hope it happens sooner rather than later. That's the main thing for me. Just sooner rather than later. We'll talk a little baseball here in just a second. But, folks, I got to tell you about Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers you amazing experiences with smart TVs as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive in on all the in-game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up on all the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more, not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. And to learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So baseball's going on right now, which I will admit, just to be honest and completely transparent, the game's actually currently going on. Arkansas is holding on to a lead, and hopefully they continue that lead as Hagen Smith's dealing. This is the only time I could record the podcast, so we may have to talk more about it tomorrow and be able to recap it and where Arkansas stands. But either way, this is a big series because anytime it's in the SEC, and Auburn's a top 25 team, even though they got swept by Vanderbilt. But Arkansas was undefeated in that home stretch. Took care of business against some teams that aren't that great, but still they did what they were supposed to do. And I know that you're not going to expect this team to win 10 SEC series. That's fine. I expect this team to lose games. That's fine. But it would be really nice against a team like Auburn to kind of really showcase that, hey, this is a team that doesn't just protect their home field. This is a team that will go out and will beat you in your own stadium too. Like I was seeing some of the crowd shots. There wasn't a whole lot of fans there. And Auburn, again, good program, but they're just not to the level of Arkansas. They're talented, but they're not to the level of Arkansas. So you got to just show it, man. I'm not worried about pitching. I'm not worried about any time that you got players out there and the bullpen and the starters. Like, I'm not worried about any of those guys. What I am worried about is if you can continue the hitting, because sometimes you're not always going to get the calls. I haven't been a fan of this umpires, home plate umpires calls already. But, the last thing you want to do is do what Arkansas has been doing and hitting into double plays and, like not taking advantage when you have runners in scoring position. Like Arkansas had bases loaded with one out and didn't get any runs. That can't happen. So they got to continue to develop that. They got to continue to get better than that. And on the road, those are the types of things that you have to do in order to win some of these games. Like you just can't. You can't just let the other team chip away. Your pitching can only take you so far. You got to score runs. And when your pitcher is out there dealing and holding them to next to no runs, like offense has got to good at too. But also on the other side, Auburn's throwing their best pitcher too. So it's not like I'm expecting to tee off and go for 18 runs, but as much as nice as that would be. But when you got them in scoring position, when you got them right where you want them to be, got to take advantage of it. And so we'll see how Arkansas takes care of business. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.